Well, howdy there, everybody. It is May 7th, 2024, and we're going to do a live Q&A session here. So it looks like the last time I did one was March 28th. So I missed all of April, and I'm sorry about that with the live Q&As, but I figured today is a good time to get going again. So as you come in, please let me know what questions you have. Let me know where you're coming in from, where you're watching from, maybe what the latest bike is that you're riding. I do a lot of calls and emails with people who are trying to get into the sport. Um, Lots of them, and it's probably I over the years, just however I've positioned this, it turns out that I'm one of the people that people feel comfortable reaching out to when they come into the sport and they have questions. And a ton of people have questions. I have, when I first started coming into the sport, and think about when you first started coming into the sport, you had a lot more questions than you had answers. In fact, a lot of times you didn't even know enough to even ask the right questions. And so the point of this is that there are no stupid questions. There's no dumb questions. It's a safe place here. And we're just going to take any questions that you've got. If you want to reach out to me, you can go to my website, dirtbikechannel.com. There's a contact form over there for me. And you can just go ahead and click on that. Just making sure I remember exactly it's contact. One of the menu items is contact. It's dirtbikechannel.com and then contact. You can click on the have questions, and that allows you to send me an email, or you can book a call with me. So I have some time slots available, and you can either book like a 15-minute call and we can chat about it, or you can book like an hour-long consultation if you want to do that. So anyway, we got a couple people coming in here. We got Chaos, K-A-O-S, maybe it's Chaos Adventures, morning from Australia. It looks like it's morning time down under. Zach Davis, hello from Washington State. DJB Racing says hello. And JDB 472, why two-stroke instead of four-stroke for single track? Well, it's because the two strokes don't stall as easily. So a lot of times on single track, the speeds are slower. It's not always, but the speeds are typically slower, and you'll have situations or sections that are more technical. And in those technical situations, you got to slow down. And because the two-stroke makes power every time the piston comes to the top of the cylinder, it doesn't stall as easily because the four-stroke, because the four-stroke has to go up twice. It only fires every other time to the top of the piston. It's got higher compression, and it doesn't fire. It doesn't like make power down every time. So in that way, if a two-stroke is at 3,000 RPMs because you're in a technical situation, you've got lower RPMs, it's making power 3,000 times a minute. Whereas that four-stroke is running at 3,000 RPMs. It's only making power 1,500 times a minute, and it's got higher compression. So the susceptibility of a four-stroke to stall is a lot greater. Now, if your RPMs are higher and the speeds are higher, it doesn't even matter. And if you're very, very good at keeping your RPMs all the way up and then just slipping your clutch, you don't stall the four strokes. But it's just so much easier. I know that, when you're in technical situations, there's a reason why. Like if you look at like the hardest enduro races of the world, like Ayrsburg and Romaniacs and some of these really, really hard enduro rides, almost everyone is on a two-stroke, and there's a reason for that. Now, the four strokes are awesome for motocross and many, many other things, including endurocross, because endurocross, those guys have trained themselves to just like, get through these situations, but also they're not going slow, so anyway, so two strokes are really, really good and helpful to make you not frustrated if the speeds are slower. And so that's why two strokes are really, really helpful for the weekend warriors and stuff on single track. PNW Excursion says, hello from Northern Idaho. NTR President says, good evening, Kyle. Mark Fraze says, options on Recluse Auto for hair scrambles. Thinking about it to help with arm pumps. So my first question there, Mark, is why would an Autoclutch help you with arm pump? Arm pump is you're holding on too tight, and so you're not getting circulation down to your hands. I mean, that's a very simplified version of it, but it happens when you got blood trapped in your arms. So my question is, how is an Autoclutch going to even solve that? How's it going to help? I don't think it will. Everyone gets arm pump, especially if you're nervous and you're in a race or something. Even the people at the top of the sport get arm pump. So I don't think that an auto clutch is going to solve your arm pump problem. So that's the first part. And then recluse auto clutch. I mean, if you're riding a 4-stroke, like we were talking about, you may feel like you need a recluse auto clutch to keep the bike from stalling. That's what we were talking about before, just a second ago. Um, Recluse auto clutches are great products. They're made by a great company, but I don't like auto clutches. I don't like what they do to my riding. I don't like how much heat they produce, and I don't like how they make it difficult to do double blips and things like this. I know there's some auto clutch people out there that are going to say, "No, I use my clutch just like normal, and it doesn't change anything." Yes, it does. It changes things. And all the like trainers I've ever been to, enduro trainers, off-road trainers, they all discourage the use of auto clutches because it's like having two people run the clutch at the same time. So if you don't want to do enduro techniques, you don't want to do trials techniques, you don't want to do double blips, you don't want to like blip into a rock or a wall or a log or whatever, and you just want to be able to make the bike not stall, an auto clutch is a great option for that. Or you could switch to a 2-stroke and then you don't need an auto clutch. So there you go. But I don't think just running an auto clutch is going to solve your arm pump problem. I don't think it will. Other people might make that argument, but I disagree. Zach Davis, Flowy Rock, a 4-stroke harder the trail. Okay, Flowy. Okay, let me just try to do this because we're not a lot of punctuation here. Flowy Rock, a 4-stroke harder the trail, the better a 2-stroke works. I think what you're saying is that the harder the trail, the better it is to be on a 2-stroke, and I would agree with that. Just because they don't stall as easily, they just have more power down low than a 4-stroke, and they don't stall as easily. So P&W Excursions, what would you pay for a clean 70-hour CRF 250X with a Kibblewise SS valves, skid plate, bark busters, and other general protection parts? So I don't know P&W Excursions because I haven't been in the market to buy a used motorcycle, especially not like one of these type bikes. Here's what I would say though. And I was telling this to a kid just yesterday. We were talking on the phone. He's in Maui, and he was asking me about prices for bikes and stuff. I don't know what the prices are for used bikes in your area. But here's what I would say. All these other parts and all these other things, they don't make the bike worth more. So any of these aftermarket parts, skid plates, bark busters, all those things, it doesn't make the bike worth any more. It might help it sell faster. It might make you like the bike more, blah, 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 but it doesn't make the bike worth anymore. You don't pay for aftermarket parts when you're buying a bike. You really just don't. Like in the same way that like if you were looking for a car, like a used car, and you find a Toyota Camry and somebody has put like a $2,000 stereo system, if the car is worth $10,000, this Toyota Camry is worth $10,000, like on Kelley Blue Book, and the owner has put in a $2,000 stereo, guess how much the car is worth? It's not worth a dime extra, really. $10, $2,000 stereo, $10 more. So all of these extra parts, it doesn't impress anybody. The fact that it has 70 hours and it's a CRF 250X, because you're saying CRF 250X, this is a bike that they don't even make anymore. It was a great bike to get started into the sport, unless you're making a typo here. Maybe you're saying it's a CRF 250RX. I don't know. But the CRF 250X wasn't air cooled. It might have been liquid cooled. Liquid cooled 254 stroke. That was a great bike to get into the sport with, but they don't make it anymore. They make the CRF 450X. But yeah, that's just my thought on there. Zach Davis said 4K max on it. 902 Nick says arm pump is technique, and I think that's what I think he was talking about, the gentleman up there, Mark, with the arm pump. And I'm saying, yeah, like your Autoclutch, I don't believe that having an auto clutch on your bike is going to solve your arm pump problem. It's technique. It's hanging on with your feet, and it's breathing too. Like breathe. Like a lot of times we're not breathing. We're holding on too tight and we're not breathing. enough. And maybe we're not in shape enough, but a lot of it could be technique. And then Chaos Adventure says it's mainly around bad body position. So everybody's kind of chiming in here on this same thing. So Autoclutch isn't going to solve your, and it looks like at least these couple gentlemen here are agreeing with me. Autoclutch isn't going to solve your arm pump situation. Oh, Mark says, but it's more for when I have too much arm pump to pull in the clutch. Yeah, well, let's not get an auto clutch because of arm pump. That's my thought. Um, Mark says it'd be for a 252. Oh, dude, Mark, you're saying it's for a 252 stroke. No. I forbid you. Don't get me personally, I forbid you. Not that I can do that, but like I would forbid you. If you were my kid or my friend, I would say no. Like there's other problems here. Don't do it. Okay, Moto says, I hope you're doing well, Kyle. Any recommendations for the knee braces? So here's what I did back in 2017. Holy Jezebel. No, it was 18. It's been 6 years ago that I tore my ACL. It was May 4th, 2018. And then what I did is I ended up having my my ACL reconstructed, and I bought the Donjoy A22 braces for both sides. They're very expensive. It was $900 per knee, and then I got they have like a knee and shin guard addition to put on those that were $100 each. So now I'm wearing $1,000 per leg, and they have to be custom fitted to you as well. And that's my thing with braces. What I think I learned through that process of doing my knee and everything is the brace has some benefit, but it has almost no benefit if it doesn't fit your leg perfectly. That's what I think I know about braces. Notice I'm not saying that's what I know about braces, but that's what I believe based on everything that I was learning and being taught from different people, is that the brace is only as good as it fits. And even then, I wore it for like 2 years. I can't remember every ride, both of them for like 2.5 years or something. I don't use them anymore. Partly because I've been the last couple of years, I've been like lifting weights and things, and they don't fit, not even at all. But they have like a lifetime warranty. I think I can send them back and have them like rebuilt for my leg. But the whole point is, I would want it to fit perfectly. And I don't know that any of these off the shelf ones are going to fit perfectly. I know you can use different inserts and all these different things, but I'm not really a believer in it, to be dead honest with you. I know the Pod K8 is good. There's the Mobius brace, which I had those. Also, if it's uncomfortable or it's hot or makes your pants fit too tight, you're not going to wear it. And so there's problems with all of it. DJB Racing, was that your last giveaway? So I'm going to try doing a giveaway differently. I'm going to do this Stark Varg. I'm going to do it from June through July. So it'll be a 60-day sweepstakes. The main way to enter will be just using the affiliate links for Rocky Mountain ATV. I love that way for you guys to support the channel because you're buying stuff that you need. Rocky Mountain ATV has 1 million parts. They have 1 million tools and tires and all this stuff. And if you use my link, I'm just trying to make it easier for you guys. I will have some stuff on my website that will also get you entered, but I'm not ordering anything. The only thing, I will have some hats. I have some hats. I have just a couple things like some toe straps, just stuff that I had left over from my last sweepstakes. So it's going to be a lot different. I'm not going to market it nearly as much. I'm not going to spend a bunch of money on Facebook and Instagram to market it. So yeah, and I'm going to try that. So it'll last for 60 days. It'll be a lot more low key. I will be sending emails and stuff, and I'll talk about it on videos, but I'm not going to be like blasting you like, hey, buy the stuff on my website. I'll be like, this is how you can enter. So I'm just going to try it a little bit more low key and see what we can do with that. And I think it's just going to be the Stark Varg because I just need to see if I can even, like, it's so expensive to do this stuff. And I don't know that I can even break even on it, but we're going to try it. Nicholas Atkinson just picked up a 2017 250XC. So far, so good. The thing is a desert weapon. So fun, so explosive. Yeah, it was amazing. The 2017 250XC was the bike that really, really got me super hooked on 250s. So I hadn't had a 250XC until that model year, and they are amazing. And that between that one and my 2018 250XC, those might have been my favorite bikes ever. I mean, maybe the 2022 250XC as well. That was also amazing, but I loved that 17 250XC. So Ethan Gilmore says he just got a new beta 2-stroke. Manual says to run 32-to-1 ratio while braking in the bike. Won't this foul the spark plug? Already looks pretty dark after a couple hours of riding. I would never run my bike at 32-to-1. This whole engine break-in stuff is poppycock, absolute poppycock. I don't believe in it at all. I've never done break-in stuff, and they run most of these motor manufacturers run your engine when the very first time it started, they put it through a dyno run, a dynamometer run. It's not in a bike. They just start it and just run it through, do a pressure test on the sucker. That puts more load on the manual or on the bike or on the motor than you'll probably ever put on it. And that's the very first time it's ever started. So this whole engine break-in stuff is total BS. I think it's just manufacturers talk about it just to like avoid liabilities or whatever. But I don't believe in it at all. I think you just get the bike and ride it how you're going to ride it. I'm not ever like 6th gear pinned, or very rarely, and I never do that on my first rides. I'm breaking in. I'm getting used to the bike. I'm going out there. So 32-to-1. Anybody who's telling you that they're running 32-to-1 is using old oil that isn't synthetic, and they're using old thought that isn't current. I would just find an oil that you like, and run that. And most of the time, like I've never, ever, 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 ever mixed an oil in a 2-stroke more than 60-to-1. 60 parts gas to 1 part oil. I just haven't done it. If you buy a new Yamaha, it'll say use Yamalube at 32-to-1. Well, that just tells me your oil sucks, and no one needs to run it at 32-to-1. But the conventional oils do need a little bit more oil in there than the synthetic oils. And the reason why they're saying 32-to-1 is just to cover their A. They don't want it to ever be their fault that you burn down a top end. But yeah, you could easily. So here's the thing with fouling the plug. Fouling the plug happens because the plug never heats up enough. It doesn't get hot enough. How does that happen? It's because it's usually got too much fuel in there. So running your oil at 32-to-1 just means it's really, really, it's going to be really smoky. You could jet the thing so it'll run like that, but I don't love doing that. Like I would just find an oil that you like, Motorex or Motul or whatever. I used to tell people to run Sabre. I got so tired of telling people to run AMSOIL Sabre at 90-to-1 because it was every other email I was responding to. But yes, I still use AMSOIL Sabre in my boys' bikes. If it's a bike that's doing premix, sometimes it'll, like I've got so many different KTMs. A lot of times I'll have Motorex Cross Power 2T because that's kind of what they calibrated their oil pumps for on their TPI bikes and their TBI bikes. And so a lot of times, if it's KTM fuel injected bike, I'm probably running Motorex Cross Power. And those guys, they're running. I know that's running at 100-to-1 when it's idle, maybe even 200-to-1 when it's at idle. Anyway, the point is, if it were me on your beta, what I would do is I'd get a good oil, and probably run it 60 or 65-to-1, and I would just run that the first tank, and I'd run that every tank afterwards. And I've done that on all my bikes, and I've never once had a problem doing it that way. So Anthony Strickland says, hey, from Indiana. Montana JJP says, best year for the KTM 300s. Well, it depends on what you're looking for. I don't have a best year. I have a best year of the frames, and I think that was somewhere between 2020 and 2022. The best year for the motors is right now. Like the fuel injection, the TBI motors, throttle body fuel injection motors, you can't get better than that. Like you just can't. People that want to say the carbureted models are better than the TBIs, no, they're not, because you don't have to tune them at all, and they run amazing at any altitude. those guys, the guys that, and I'm not saying carburetors suck. I'm just saying that like most people don't know how to tune a carburetor, and most people are not gonna tune the carburetor. And so the you may be able to make a carbureted bike run better than a fuel injected bike, like 2 or 3% better. But almost all the time, the carbureted bike is going to run worse because of density altitude, because you're chasing density altitude. Ezekiel Roy says, "Hey, what's up?" Silas Wolf says, "Have you ever tried night riding?" Yeah, I do night rides a couple times a year. I certainly do. It's kind of fun. Keegan Hardley, would you rather have a 250 or a 300 for fast desert stuff? That's an easy question. 250. If it's going to be fast, if speeds are second gear through fourth gear, I'd much rather be on a 250 than a 300. They're just more playful. They're more racy. It's just, they reward you for keeping it higher in the RPM range. The power curve is a little bit higher on the RPM curve. The 250 is the bike for faster desert stuff. Tom Natoli says, "Hi." DJB Racing says, I wore the merch to school today. Awesome. Thanks, brother. Shoes, or SCHOESS, says, "What mods would you do to a YZ250X to make it more well-rounded and slow and technical for trails?" Here's the problem with the YZ250X. It just needs a bloody kickstart, and it needs a 6-speed transmission. You can't really do much to make it more well-rounded. They've already dropped the compression. They've already added a little bit of weight to the flywheel. I mean, if you gear the bike down, then it's just ride it. I mean, well-rounded for slow and technical trails. Well, revalve the suspension, because even Yamaha didn't make that suspension soft enough for like slower, more technical trails. So revalve the suspension. I mean, but there's not I don't think there's a ton you can do to make the YZ250X better. The things that you would need to make it do for slow and technical, what do I want for slow and technical? Electric start. So that when I do stall it, I'm not kicking the damn thing. Sorry, not supposed to swear on this. I usually don't. But like, the problem with the YZ250X is you can't do the things that would make it more well-rounded. KTM did, Beta did, Sherco did. Yamaha hasn't done it. So like, just the YZ250X is a great bike for what it is, especially because it's light, it's simple, and it's cheap. Well, cheap compared to the other bikes. But it's never like if you're asking me, would I rather have a Beta than the Yamaha for slow and technical? The answer is yes. Would I rather have a Sherco for slow and technical? Yes. And go on down the line. KTM, Gas, Husqvarna, Sherco, Beta. I'd rather have all of those for slow and technical over the Yamaha, because it doesn't have electric start, because it has the wrong transmission, all those types of things. So that doesn't mean your bike sucks. Your bike is awesome, but it's a 20-year. They're just rolling out 20-year-old technology with an 18-inch rear wheel and a kickstand and a little bit softer valving. And yeah, so there's not much you can do to it. Like, you bought that bike, you got $2,000. It was $2,000 cheaper than a lot of these other options. But in my opinion, it has more than $2,000 less things on it. I mean, how much would you pay for electric start and the right transmission? And for me, is $2,000 worth having a bigger gas tank, electric start, the right transmission, hydraulic clutch, all these things? Yeah, it is. But when you've bought the YZ250X, you've already said, I don't care about these things. I'm buying it because it's $2,000 cheaper. So at that point, you're just kind of stuck. I know there's other people who would say, well, put a heavier flywheel weight on it, or do this to the gearing. But those benefits, I believe, are negligible. And I think in that way, you're putting lipstick on a pig. That sounds so bad, though, because it's not like your bike is a pig. But that's the best way for me to say it. So it is what it is. It's a great bike. It's a fun motorcycle. It's fun. I'm glad Yamaha's still making it. But when you compare it apples to oranges between the Beta or the KTM or the Sherco or the TM, it just falls a little flat on the Yamaha. Tom Natoli says the TP199 braces are, in my opinion, the best on the market. I think he's talking about knee braces. I haven't had them. Haven't tried them. NTR president, in your experience, who's the best off-road instructor? I'm thinking he's saying Rich Larson, Birch. I can't remember his name. Jarvis, a teacher, not writer. I haven't used Birch or Birchie or whatever they call him, but Rich Larson is the best. I've used other people, and Rich Larson, in my opinion, is like the best off-road instructor I've ever seen. He's very articulate. He is an insane rider, so good, and he's done a lot of coaching, and he's great. You really can't beat him for off-road coaching for sure. Somebody that looks like it's more of a Russian or Cyrillic name here. He says, I want to do enduro and I'm in the process of buying equipment. Question, should I take thermal base layer? What does it give up? Does anyone use it? Can't find a normal review about this. I don't know what. I wear base layers all the time. I don't know which base layer you're talking about, but I wear base layers on my legs, on my lower body and my upper body every time I ride. So I get some stuff from Fly Racing, but you can get it from anywhere. If it's just like a base layer, it's a moisture wicking layer. I use that every single ride. And sometimes I'll layer up and have two of them on if it's cold. Fanboy27 says, what do you think about the 2023 Beta 390RR? I just bought one from 8200 new from the dealer. So the last time I had one of those, it was a long time ago. I think it was like a 2019 Beta 390RR, and I really, really loved it. So let me know what you think of it. Send me an email, kyle@dirtbikechannel.com. By the way, if you want to support these videos, one of the best ways to do it is to use the links down in the video description for Rocky Mountain ATV. Or you can find them, you can find them over on my website, dirtbikechannel.com. There's a thing that says Shop Rocky Mountain ATV. You click on that, and bam, then you can just order anything that you would normally order. And you just log in just as normal. It doesn't say that you're giving credit to the affiliate, to me in this case, but you are, and it works really great. So yeah, let's see. Oh, Roadhammer says, just use your link last week to buy some parts and dirt bike pants and jerseys. Pants didn't fit. Customer service was amazing. Turnaround was quick, and highly recommend using them. Thank you so much, Roadhammer. I had one guy reach out to me, and good guy, and he said, hey, I don't want to use your links for Rocky Mountain ATV because I had a bad customer service experience. And I emailed him about him and I emailed him and asked what it was. And he did have a problem, but like he was asking anyway, I don't want to get into it, but he had one customer service issue and then he decided that he wasn't going to use them ever again. And I thought that was a little interesting, but here's the thing. I've purchased more than $100,000 from Rocky Mountain ATV, and I've never had a bad customer service experience. I understand that if I call in there, I'm probably going to get a teenager, and they're not really going to be able to answer technical questions. So I'm going to have to do that on my own by using the internet. But if I have a problem with sizing, just like Roadhammer says, send it back. It's free returns, no questions asked. If you send it back, you can get a new size, blah blah blah. So that's awesome. Sporty Nordy Mountain Bike says, what 2025 bike are you most interested in? I don't know. I don't think there's one that I'm more interested in than others. I do want to see if the frame changes that KTM did to their motocross bikes to make the frames a little less rigid. I want to see if those are going to come to if they're going to come to the XCW models or if they're not, because a lot of times they only go to like the XC bikes and the SX bikes. The frame changes the first year. So we'll just see. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. Mark Phrase says, do you think a KX250 with a 3.3 gallon tank would last a 3-hour hair scramble? So I don't know. Are you talking a KX250? Like the KX250 sounds like a 2-stroke. So I don't know if you're talking about a KX250X, the 4-stroke. It's hard to say. If it's the 4-stroke, I think probably yes. 3.3 gallons is a lot. But if it's the 2-stroke, and I would probably say, I'd say, I think it would work on the 2-stroke as well, as long as you were jetted correctly and not dumping a bunch of fuel out of the overflow. Yeah. Aaron Phillips down here says, jumped into the oil mix convo. My old YZ250X called for 40 to 1, if I remember right. Kept fouling plugs. Went to 60 to 80 to 1 and ran great. Better on the 80 to 1, in my opinion. Now, this is Aaron. So, Aaron, thanks for chiming in. The tricky part about this is that Okay, so oil ratio, there's the amount of oil that we mix in the fuel, and then there's the amount of fuel that we mix in with the air in the carburetor, and they're two different things, and they have inverse proportion to each other. So let me just say it like this: you can either have thin fuel or thick fuel. Okay, so how do you have thick fuel? Well, you mix it 32 to 1. Tons of oil in the gas. I'm just calling it thick fuel. Thick fuel means not a lot of fuel will go through the carburetor. So it might, it, one of the ways that you can make your bike, like if you didn't have the ability to rejet your carburetor and all of a sudden you went somewhere and the bike is running too rich, meaning it's too fuel rich, you could make it more fuel lean by putting more oil in your fuel and then it would be more fuel lean in the carburetor. So anyway, here's what I always recommend. Find an oil that you like, get a reputable oil, Motorex, Motul, Amsoil, whatever, and then mix it somewhere between 60 and 80 to 1. And now that you're going to be consistent on that oil mix, now adjust your air fuel ratios. And that's what you're doing on your carburetor. So on your carburetor, you're adjusting how much fuel is going into there, and so there's those two different things and it gets really confusing for people. So in order to just make it less confusing, pick a good oil, get a synthetic oil, doesn't take a lot of money, and then don't put 32 to 1 in there. Don't put 40 to 1. Go 60 or 80 to 1. And as long as you have a good quality oil, you'll never have a problem. I never have. I've done this a lot. We've been doing it now since 2012. So for 12 years, I've been putting in small engines and big engines, and it works fine if you get a good quality oil. And yeah, I've never ever mixed it with more oil than 60 to 1 on anything ever, and I've never had a problem. And I've never fouled a plug either. But again, fouling plugs is because the plug doesn't get hot enough. So that can happen because there's too much fuel, and it can happen because there's too much oil. The oil makes it burn less hot. Okay. Yeah, Christopher says, yeah, Beta Race Team run 65 to 1. Chaos Adventure says, I'm on a TM 300 EN 22. He's on the Motorex oil 50 to 1. I changed the jetting, and I've also changed the new needle to a Suzuki needle. I'm at 130 hours on the original top end, so definitely oil. So again, here's another person. I don't run 50 to 1. I'd run even leaner oil than that, and then tune my carburetor. As long as you're putting enough fuel in through the carburetor, you're not going to burn down your top end. Let's see. Oh, Zach Farkash says the crank chef needs more lubrication than 60 to 1, especially if you're running your bike wide open. I don't agree with you. I will agree that when your bike is wide open, it needs more oil. But the thing is your bike isn't wide open for a long time. So if you're running 32 to 1, if you were going to keep the bike wide open, if the throttle was always wide open and you were running conventional oils, that's why you would need 32 to 1. So that's why they put it on there, is so that if somebody decides to ride their bike wide open for an hour, which no one ever does, but if someone ever did use their bike wide open for 1 hour, it wouldn't burn down in theory. But you could still burn the dang thing down if your fuel ratio was too low. If you had too little fuel in the air mix, it wouldn't even matter if you have 32 to 1, your bike would burn down then too. So whole point is, yeah, it needs more oil when it's wide open. That's why these the oil injected bikes have a throttle position sensor, because the further that goes open, the more oil it will then pump in those moments. But when we're mixing 32 to 1 or we're mixing 40 to 1, I don't know about you, Zach, but I don't like the times that I'm wide open are almost never. The only time my bike is wide open is if I'm in a drag race, and I haven't done a drag race for 2 years. So in normal riding, your bike isn't wide open. Some people say it's wide open, but it's usually 3/4 throttle. And so, yes, they need more oil when they're wide open, but how often are you wide open? Almost all of my riding is half throttle and under. So, and even then, even if you did need quote 60 to 1 or 40 to 1 when the bike was wide open, okay, my bike's wide open for 2 seconds in a 1 hour ride, it'll be totally fine. Okay. Trail Tech Boy says 250X need an XC head and a flywheel weight, which is optional. So the XC head is adding compression back, and then a flywheel weight. So it already has a flywheel weight, and they drop the compression to make it a little bit more trail friendly. So that's why I say it's lipstick on a pig. It's negligible benefits, if any benefit. Sibtane SR says thoughts on a Yamaha YZ450F. Secondly, riding in general city roads, track and off road as well. Thirdly, is a do-it-all bike. I don't think so you're saying a YZ450F, that's a motocross bike. So secondly, riding on general city roads, I don't think it's a good idea to take a motocross bike on city roads at all. Track, it's a good bike for track if you're a really, really good rider because it's 450. I don't need a 450. And then thirdly is a do-it-all bike. YZ450 is not a do-it-all bike. It's a track. It's a motocross bike. That's what it does. That's what it'll do really well if you're a good rider. It isn't a do-it-all bike, and 450s are not good bikes for most people on planet Earth. I'm sorry to say, but they're just not. Leo Lewis, they're good for like professional riders. There's a few people on the planet that can handle a 450 and that need a 450. There's other people that want them, but being able to manage it, not many people can manage it. You might think you're one, but I certainly know I'm not. And I know most people aren't. Besides weight reduction, why do you think KTM removed Kickstarters? To save cost too. So it's a weight reduction and it's a cost reduction, and they've just looked at the data. And I've harked on this, and I've been pissed about this, but it's like, here's the thing. How often are they used? Almost never. I've never been stranded on a bike because my Kickstarter failed. I mean, because my electric start failed. Yeah, it would be nice to have the backup on there, and I have complained about it for years, but I've talked to KTM. I've talked to their I've been on a couple different events with Gas and with KTM. And their engineers are just like, we just think it's redundant. We don't need it. People don't use it. And then even I was talking even with Beta, and they were saying, well, we took it off our bikes and then we gave it to people. We were like, hey, you can add this on, for an extra fee. And we thought a lot of people would do it. And they said almost no one bought the backup kickstart like kit. So it's just, yeah, it's weight reduction, it's cost reduction, it's like to simplify things. And also they just see it as very redundant, and they have enough data to show. Now there's some of us that do want that backup Kickstarter, but I've never had to use it. I've never been stranded because I didn't have a backup Kickstarter. So knock on wood. Michael Yates raced for the first time this year at the Desert 100. Got to come check it out. Can't wait till next year. That's what he says. Nicholas Spellman, what are the first few things you would do when you buy a bike? So I have a checklist that I go through. And if you email me, I can give you that checklist. It's just me, just like it's a copy paste thing. I go through a bunch of stuff, checking spokes and checking torque things and checking clickers and adding some protective parts and checking like wheel bearings and things like that. So I have a checklist of about 60 things that I kind of look at. I don't do all 60 things to all the bikes, but like there's a kind of a list that I go through. Because some of the people are talking about grease every bearing on the thing, and yeah, checking torque. There's some things that are good to do. Cole Bryant, my dirt bikes keep fouling spark plugs. What should I do? Cole, that again, that probably means that you're running too much gas, too much fuel. Most likely your bike is jetted for a much lower elevation than where you're riding. And so it's getting too much fuel. The spark plug is never getting actually up to the operating temperature to like burn all this stuff. And so that's the problem that you're having. So I would look, depending on what bike you have, you might have a jetting chart in your manual, like KTM's have like a jetting chart. The other bikes didn't really do that very much, so it's kind of hard to figure out what you need. But you need less fuel through the carburetor, most likely. So pick an oil, get a good oil, makes it 60-1. I'm just going to say it like there, and then 61 with the fuel and the oil, and then start leaning out the fuel mixture in the carburetor, meaning less fuel in the carburetor through the carburetor, and you'll start getting there. Tom Natoli says, my mate did 1,000 hours on a KTM EXC 500 motor without touching it. Yeah, I don't doubt that. He'd probably have, so that's a 4-stroke. He'd probably have less compression at the end of it, but I know that's the thing. Leo Lewis says, any tips on log hopping? Yeah, don't get a Recluse Autoclutch because you want to like double blip into it. Google or look on YouTube for like double blip techniques. It's where you compress the bike and get a little bit of a lock, compress the suspension, and use the clutch to raise the wheel and hit that front tire about half to 2/3 of the way up, maybe in 3/4 of the way up. Have it compress the bike, compress the suspension while you're clutching it again and building up. This is the double blip. The second blip is where you're building up RPMs in the bike, and then whack, and then you let it go and you jump up over the thing. So do a search for double blips, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Tom Natoli says he changed the oil every 50 hours, probably on that 1,000 hour thing. Silver Blazer, did you get tattoos on your forearms? The answer is yes, I did. Michael Yates says RMA TV is the best. I always use your link. Thank you so much, Michael. That I appreciate that so much. Tom Natoli, the 350 is the best bike on the market. Okay. I'm glad that you think so. Yeah, they're good bikes. They're not my favorite though. 350s, the 350s, in my opinion, the 350 sounds really good on paper, but in practice, I like the 250s better, which is weird. You would think. I remember like there's so many reasons why I think the 350 should be better than the 250, but I haven't yet found a 350 that I liked better. Let's see. Yeah, Jonathan Carey says, I agree. Rocky Mountain ATV MC has been great for me too as well. I use the links every time. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I really, really appreciate your support on that. Tom Natoli says, I got 2 of them and I love them. I'm not sure what the 2 are. The dirt bike guy says, do you like KTM 350 4-strokes? I just bought it in my first full-size bike. I turned 16 and I love enduro here in northern Idaho. Okay, so here's the deal. I don't want to tell you that I don't like your bike. This is from the dirt bike guy because you just got a 350. It's a fantastic motorcycle. It's amazing. I'm so glad that they exist. And I've had them before. I've ridden them before, and they're amazing, 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 amazing dirt bikes. And I don't want to say anything bad about your bike because I don't want you to feel worse about it. I just have always preferred the 250s over the 350s. They just feel light and playful to me. But there are some really, really good advantages to the 350. And I like the 350 a lot better than I like the 450. So you got a great bike, ride it and love it. Okay. It's a lot of bike for a 16-year-old though. My son's 16 and he's still on 125 2-stroke. But it's fantastic motorcycle. And I don't know anything about you. You might be 200. You could be 200 pounds, and so it may be just the perfect bike for you. That's the thing. It could be the perfect bike for you. For me, I like the 250s a little better. Trace Hill says, great info across the board, saves me money. Thanks. Thank you. Mark Frey says, yes, 2-stroke 2005. Must be talking about that YZ250. Tom Natoli says the 350 is the best bike KTM has made. I disagree with you, but we can agree to disagree. 80-1. It ain't a trials bike. Stay out of the sand. Talking about jetting up before. Benjamin K, how much range do you think you can get on a 2019 Yamaha YZ250 FX? I weigh around 125 pounds with gear. You're very light, brother. The bike has a 2.1 gallon tank. I hesitate to talk about range on any of these bikes because it changes so much based on the rider, what your riding style is, how heavy you are on the throttle, and the speeds. So, range, I have literally been on rides where I was out at 40 on the same bike, same jetting, same whatever. I've been on rides where I was out of gas at 40 miles, and then the same bike has been able to do 90 miles on another ride. Depends on the ride, depends on how much of it you are going on dirt roads and all this stuff. So I don't know. You're just going to have to figure that out. Most of these bikes can go between 40 and 80 miles. I know that's a big gap, but it's true. Yeah, hard to say, but you're a light guy, and if you're light on the throttle, you can go a long way. Silas Wolf, have you ever raced in a hare scramble? No, I don't. I've never raced. I'm not interested in racing. It's just not my thing. My son races motocross now, but like I'm not going to get into that. It's a rabbit hole I go down, but no, I don't race, and I don't have any interest in racing. I never have had an interest in it. Keegan Heartily. Okay, so would you rather have a 250 or a 300 if you could have one only all year? I'd probably go the 250 if I could only have one, because the 250 can do everything the 300 can do, but the 250 is a little bit more playful. So if I know I'm going to do an harder enduro and stuff, and it's going to be first and second gear, I'd rather have the 300. But if I know I'm going to be in second gear and third gear, I'd rather have the 250. And if I could only have one of them, I take the 250 probably. Ethan says, any thoughts on USWE Raw 8 for hard enduro plus XC? I'm assuming you're talking about the pack. I don't know this specific model, but I've had USWE packs and they're really, really good. So I like them as long as I can carry a lot of water and some tools. Michael Yates says, yeah, small, simple changes. Probably talking about the YZ250X. Let's see here. We've got next one. Oh, Christopher, any plans to do a hard enduro race? It would be great to watch. No, I have no plans to do a hard enduro race. I don't think I ever will. It's possible I'll do a race at some point, but I'm not going to do a hard enduro race. I don't have any desire to do that. Mark Phrase, I've actually heard oil raises the compression and makes power up to a point. Oil does raise compression, but again, why would we put more oil in our gas and change our jetting around, change our fuel to air mix? Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. More oil would up the compression, but it's pick an oil ratio, stick with it, and then jet your carburetor. You guys will thank me. Listen to the sound of my voice. If you don't want to be chasing your jetting all the time, remove one of the factors, which is the oil. So mix it at 60-1. Buy an oil, mix it at 60-1 or 80-1, and then stick with that. And then work on your carburetor jetting. And if you want to increase compression or decrease compression, do that with a head. Okay. Lots of oil talking here. Tile Palmer says more oil equals more viscous equals leaner. Tyler, you did well because you used a very low amount of words to convey very lot of information. And I agree with everything you said. He said more oil equals more viscous, aka thicker, equals leaner on the fuel air mixture. And he's absolutely right. And it's counterintuitive. It's hard to get that in your brain. But read Tyler Palmer's comment. More oil equals more viscous equals leaner. He's right. You have to understand what he's saying, though. The leaner is the fuel air mix. Good job, Tyler. Mitch Kolb says, my 2020 KTM 300 is close to 150 hours. Should I think of a rebuild? Yes. Somewhere in that 150 to 300 or 150 to 200 hours is when you should rebuild that. And since it's a TPI bike, do the oil pump as well when you do the top end, and you'll be good. Carl says, Kyle, you never keep a bike long enough to reach the point where the e-start will have problems. I have in the past, Carl. I haven't recently, but I have in the past. But also, here's another point, Carl. Even though I recently have not had the bikes for a lot of hours, think about how many bikes I've had, Carl, because I've had around 100 of these things. I've started them a lot. So I have had bikes that I ran up to 150 hours, 175 hours. Also, though, Carl, here's the other thing. I have buddies that ride these bikes too. And I do not know a single person that I don't personally know. Like there could be some people that had a failure. It is snowing to beat the band out here. Like I'm looking out my window. It's May 7th and it is snowing like freaking crazy out my window here in Utah. It snowed over the week. It snowed on my son's birthday 2 days ago and it's snowing like mad right out here right now. And I'm so frustrated with this. But none of my buddies have ever had a starter break either. And I have just in my little riding circle, we have thousands of hours on these things, Carl, and never one starter motor problem, never a starter failure in all the hours that I've done and my buddies have done. So that's my point, or that's my rebuttal to that, where I'm just like, look, the factories have it right. They don't really break. I wish we'd get. I'd preferably I would have it. If it were up to me, I would keep the kickstart on the bike. Let me just be clear with that. I'd keep it on the bike, but it isn't up to me, and I can see why they're doing it. Okay, rider. So Steve Parankiewicz says 5'5" rider. My 1982 Yamaha DT 175 MX is now dead. It's 42 years old. Wanted a new 2-stroke bike, but my KTM 150 XCW, but they're way too tall for me. Go 85cc. Oh, so you're in a pickle. Anyone under about 5'6" has a hard time riding these bikes. So here's what I would suggest. Go look at a Beta 200RR. This bike is going to be right up your alley. It's going to be better than the KTM 150 XCW because it'll have more power. And they're making them 1 inch shorter. Plus, you can get a low boy option on it, and that makes the bike 3 inches shorter overall than the KTM. And you get a freaking Beta 200RR, 3 inches lower than that KTM. You're going to absolutely love it. Look at that. Go look at the Beta 200RR with the low boy option. You're gonna thank me later. Nicholas Spellman, what are the first upgrades you would do when you buy a bike? I don't really upgrade the bikes. I put protection parts on them. The bikes are already upgraded more than I need. The bikes that we buy, we as regular humans will only be able to scratch the surface of their capability. I firmly believe that I'm only getting about 30% out of these bikes, that 30% of their capability. And so I put protective parts on them. I don't put upgrades on them. So that would be my suggestion, is go out there, put some protective parts on it, like a good skid plate, some of these protective parts, and I would go for that. Carl says, why do Kawasaki and Yamaha both recommend 32-to-1 premix? Number one, it's because they're recommending the own oil that they use, that they own, which is not a synthetic oil. And number two, they're trying to cover their butt in case somebody does actually put that thing wide open for an hour. That's why. But they're saying Yamaha, and it shows right in the Yamaha book, Carl. And we're friends, so I can talk testily to you. But they're saying to use Yamalube, which isn't as good of an oil. I'm saying that straight up. Yamalube is not as good of an oil as like a Motor X or an AMSOIL or whatever. And then they're saying to run a 32-to-1 so that they're never, ever, ever liable in case somebody does hold that thing wide open on a dyno for an hour. That's why they do it. But no one does that. Cole Bryant, what about the spark plugs? Is it a 4-stroke? It's about spark plugs. It's a 4-stroke. It is burning through plugs in 2 hours. Something is wrong. I don't know what bike you've got, but something's wrong. If it's burning through plugs in 2 hours, it's probably because it's running too much fuel. If it's an EFI bike, something needs to happen. If it's a carbureted bike, it needs to be rejetted. Shoes says you can buy lowering kits for most KTM bikes. Yes, you can. You can lower most of these bikes. But if we're talking about the guy up higher, I would, if you're 5'5" and you've been riding this 175 from back in the day, get a Beta 200RR. It's going to be, I think the motor is more versatile than that 150 XCW, and it'll be shorter for you. So that would be great. See, Michael Yates says, Steve, look at the Beta X Trainer with factory lowing kits. I don't agree with the X Trainer comment. I would go with the 200RR. The X Trainer is a really detuned 300, and I don't love it. I'd much rather be on the 200. I'd much rather see people not ride a detuned motor. Get the 200 RR. um, Colton, why did you get tattoos? Also, thanks for the recommend of running Saber. It's great. I just wanted to. I'm 40, almost 43. Just wanted to do it. And Amsoil Saber is great oil. I almost broke the internet. I didn't break the internet, but I got so tired of like defending Amsoil Saber that I hardly ever talk about it anymore on videos, but I still use it to this day. I've never. My thought was, because people are always like got their panties in a wad because they're like that oil is for weed eaters. And I'm like, bro, do you really think there's like 70 different formulations of this two-stroke oil? These companies like Amsoil is selling like 9 or 10 or 12 different like oils. I think it's just marketing. And also, if that Amsoil Saber is good enough to keep a weed eater, an air-cooled motor, okay, when it's running wide open, the weed eater runs wide open for an hour straight on an air-cooled motor. You can't like put a motor through harder stuff than that. So I think it's going to work for my liquid-cooled dirt bike at like half throttle and under. And so, yeah, it's been really, Amsoil's always worked really great for me. Steve Almus, have you ever come up here to the British Columbia to go riding or places in the Pacific Northwest? I haven't. It'd be fun. Any new change? Mitch Kolb says any changes on the KTM 2025 KTMs? I think it's mostly just going to be a frame change, but we don't know. We'll just have to see. I've been on here for almost an hour. I try to not go much over an hour. Dylan Collins says 2023 KTM 300. Let's see, 2023 KTM 300 ECW. I'm guessing you say XCW. Keeps fouling plugs. I ride 2,000 feet and sea level, and I don't know why. I would check your crankcase pressure sensors, your CCP. There's 2 of them on the bike. Check those. I've had a few people email me over the years and say that their crankcase pressure sensor, the CCP on the bike, when they've replaced those. I've never had this go out on any of mine, but they've said, hey, once I replaced it, then they stop fouling plugs. So check into that. Austin Nyland says KTM 300 XCW or 250 XCW. I bought the 300 and I love it. Very similar bikes. 250 motor just makes power a little bit higher in the RPM curve, and it feels a little bit lighter, a little bit more playful, but it doesn't have as much low end. So, yeah. Here we go. R. Martino says, looking for a new helmet. Considering the 60 ATR2 or Fly Carbon Formula, which would you choose? I've used them both. I like them both a lot. I've mostly been using the Fly Formula helmet the last few years. I just really like the way it fits my head. But both of them are amazing. So in your case, honestly, and they cost about the same, so I would just pick the one that I think you like the color of better, to be dead honest with you. In the past, I feel like the 6D helmets, and I haven't looked at them for a minute, but I felt like the 6D helmets were a little bit more boring on the colorways, but that's just in the eye of the beholder. But both of those helmets are amazing. Cannot go wrong with either one. Apprehensive YOLO says, do you have tire recommendations for rocky woods riding? I live in New England. Yes, I do. Send me an email. I'll send you a bunch of tire recommendations. IRC VE33S, Tusk Talon, Shinko 520 DC, Shinko 525. There's some different ones. But send me an email, kyle@dirtbikechannel.com, and I'll send you back a bunch of tires. Steve, do you ever do any local Salt Lake area meetup single track play rides? I have not done that. I'm an introvert, so I usually just ride alone most of the time. Leo Lewis says, I'm 14. I'm on a KTM 350, also a big kid, but it feels great on me. No comment there. I just think it's a big bike for a 14-year-old Leo. I'm glad it works for you. My kid's 16 and he's still on his 125. I just think it's better to be on a smaller motor. A smaller motor longer. I think it's better. So it's a really big bike. It's a lot of power for a 14-year-old. Yeah. Ethan Gilmore says, "Is liquid moly a good oil? I'm thinking about switching to Klotz Super Technoplate. A lot of them are good. Like I don't have. I'm not here to sell oil. Just pick one that you like. Stick with it. Make sure it's a synthetic oil." Um, Carbon's Motocross Dirt Bike Adventure says KTM 85cc or YZ 85cc. Who's reliable? Both of them are reliable. Anyone that tells you that a KTM is not reliable or a Yamaha is not reliable or a Kawasaki is not reliable, just smile and shake your head. Be like, okay, cool. Because they're all reliable if you do maintenance. Like the problem with the bikes is not usually the bike, it's usually you. So I haven't had the 85, the YZ85, but I will say at least on the 65s. Now take this for what it's worth. The YZ65, we did have one of those, and we also had a KTM 65, and the KTM 65 had more low end. I don't know if that's the same with the 85, the YZ85. It may be just it could be equal to the KTM in power, but the 65 Yamaha had a better top end, but not as good of a bottom end. So the YZ65 was great on the track, but not great in the mountains. Leo Lewis says, "What do you think of the WLF Enduro Pack Vest? I have one. I should do a review on it. I don't love how it cuts up, like with the chest protector, like because I run these chest protectors. It's eluding me now. Tech Vest. I run a Tech Vest and for protection, and then the WLF Enduro Pack Vest kind of like rides up and cuts into me. Makes things cut into me. I don't know. I have a buddy that loves it, and I don't love mine. I got to be honest. That's the WLF Enduro Pack Vest. I don't love it. I want to love it, but I don't. Some guys do. The dirt bike guy did it. So you're talking about the 350. I'm just gonna skim through here to see if there's any other channels or any other things that I should answer here because I need to get running. Tyler Palmer says people also forget that the good old bump start is also an e-start backup. Yeah, but sometimes you can't bump start, but I hear what you're saying. How can gas powered bikes improve any more than they already have? Well, this is a question by Rusty. I thought we don't know, man. Like they have been continually improving them, and each year they get incrementally better. So I didn't know that they could improve any past the 2015. I remember sitting around a campfire at 2015 KTM 300XC going like, how could it get any better than this? There's no way. But they did. They are better than in 2015. So I don't know. Chris says, all you guys having carburetor problems, so just put Electron on your bike. I put one on my 2001 CR250, and what a difference the stock Mikuni TMX38 is junk, and I could never get it dialed in. So Chris makes a good point. On these carbureted bikes, Electron makes a really great option for it. Smart Carb makes a great option for it. And with a little bit of tuning from your Electron and your Smart Carb, most of your jetting will go away. Keegan Hardley says, would you rather have a KTM 250XC or YZ250X? I'll take the KTM. The reason why is because I get electric start. I get a 6-speed transmission. I get a bigger fuel tank. I get a hydraulic clutch. I get Brembo brakes, which I don't care what anyone says. They're better than the Nissan brakes. At least I think they are. So there's a bunch of reasons I'd rather have the 250XC. It's fuel injected, tons of things. Michael Yates says Maxima castor oil has always been my go-to. Plus, I love the castor oil smell. A lot of people do. Yeah. Why do Honda 450s flame out? It's because it's a high compression 4-stroke and it only makes power every other time. Mark KDX Rider says, I've seen some good deals on the Sherco 252 stroke. I'm thinking it would be a nice e-start upgrade from my beloved KDX 220. Thoughts? Yeah. The Sherco 250, the Sherco is amazing. So it's a good bike. Yeah. Oh, Steve says, thanks for the recommendations on the 200RR. Any second recommendation? Closest beta dealer is 7-hour drive. Steve, it's worth 7 hours. I would drive. Like I'm telling you, at 5'5", and if you, given the bike that you come off of, it's the best. It is the best option for you. The second best option might be that KTM 150 you're talking about with a lowering kit. But I would, because you're going to have this bike for the next 100 to 200 to 300 hours, I would say get the Beta 200. Okay. I'm going to cut you guys loose. I've been going for an hour and 5 minutes. So let's stop it right here. If you have any questions, email me. And if you want to support what we're doing, use the links to Rocky Mountain ATV. They're down in the video description and they're over on my website. Okay. Thanks guys. And we'll talk to you soon.